When was the last time you noticed someone in the street and they made you turn and look just by what they were wearing, and you thought to yourself, they look cool, smart, individual? Someone maybe with a sense of their own style. Let's face it doesn't happen often, does it? So, why is it that nowadays the emphasis of street fashion is comfort and not cool? It's therefore not surprising that today's fashion houses are turning more frequently to the decade that put the art into smart. Back in the day, we used to pay a fortune to look different. Now they pay a fortune to look like each other. What's that all about then? Luckily, my chauffeur here knows exactly where to find the answers to those questions.
Friends of mine had a band called the Redcoats in our youth club, and they went to this competition, Battle of the Bands. While we were there, I saw this group of guys with immaculate sort of Tony Curtis type haircuts, cut by Italian barbers. They had bum freezer jackets with half belts almost up into their shoulder blades at the back. All the buttons were cloth-covered buttons. They had trousers with slits up the side with a couple of buttons up the side there, side lacing winkle pickers, slim ties, cutaway collar shirts, which was really outrageous. And I went up to these guys and I just said, completely naively, I just said, "Why are you dressed like that?" And they said, "Oh, we're modernists," and just turn, like a snooty turn away, who is this jerk, asking us these stupid questions, But that's the first time that I heard the word modernist.
It's sort of 1960, 59 even, after those Ted's Victorian men, suddenly this sharper look is emanating. I remember my cousin said, "I've just been to see this incredible film called La Dolce Vita," and a crucifix, his cross is flying over Rome, and these men in black suits and shades, and it sounded very exotic. And you'd see people around here in Soho kind of looking like that. So I was always interested, and I think I wanted to get that look. And I thought, well, the way to get it, I better learn to make it, then I can have it. So I did.
Well, when I was very young, going back right to the beginning of the 60s, where I lived in a small town, nothing was available. So I would make some of my own clothes. The first one I ever copied must be Brigitte Bardot. But in 1963, I saw this pattern in town. And it was a shift dress, and I thought, my goodness, that's different. I love that. That was sort of the change. It's all started there.
No one used to buy any old clothes, though. And I used to go around markets and buy old uniforms and frock coats. And it's a sort of natural progression into making a few things for a boutique. You got the shop, you painted it purple, you hang the embroidered shawls up, and you put some things in it, and satin and frilly shirts, and away you went. And that was Carnaby Street.
In 1965, we started the shop known as Granny Takes a Trip. I was pulled in because I had the tailoring knowledge, and my two partners had been buying up Victorian stuff all over the place. And thought I would be a very useful member because I could help rejig it, which is what we were doing.
We opened a place in Kensington Market in October '67 when it first opened, and it was called The Heavy Metal Kids, which was a line out of a John Steinbeck novel. Before it meant heavy metal music. He came back and said, "We've got to get a place in here," and we didn't know what we were going to sell, what we were going to do, but he wanted to get a place in there, and I was working at Q department in Austin Reeves at the time. He said, "You've got to chuck your job in, and we've got to do this," And we all had sort of French haircuts, like parted here, coming down here. The shop was like a submarine. It was silver, and a curved round on one corner, and instead of a door it had a big egg-shaped hole with a plug in it that we used to plug up every night. And inside it was totally Art Nouveau. And then a bit later on, we moved round the corner and we opened another one called Cockle & Johnson. And we just did shirts, because the French were doing skin-tight shirts with 6 pleats at the back, 2 front pleats, that sort of thing, 1-inch collars, little pointed collars, before all the high stuff came in again. And then found that we had quite a big following in the pop world, which was good for us.
The Beatles walked in and said, "Well, they did it all themselves, it's great, isn't it?"
There were a lot of people coming, obviously Rod Stewart and people like that. All the guys from Unit 4+2, Argent, all those sort of bands. And a lot of them I didn't know who they were.
Now, as far as our influence was going, it was certainly Victorian, and it was Aubrey Beardsley, the Art Nouveau movement. I'd completely gone out of mod and sharp suiting, and everything became a bit more flowy and decadent. So the influence would have been Beardsley, Oscar Wilde, all the decadents. My partner was an artist, still is. And so, yes, it was important for him to have that sort of outlet. Well, it became a bit like Warhol's factory, you know, there'd be somebody doing something in the corner. There would be posters designed, there's band rehearsing in the basement. Our customers would come in and demand, say, "I've seen the Beatles wearing this shirt on the cover of Revolver, and I want one like that." And we'd say, "Well, piss off, we did that yesterday and we've stopped doing it now, and you can have this." Things could have been milked to death and made a fortune, but we had integrity, and we'd lose interest. You know, we've done that. Next. You have the certitude, if you like, and the arrogance of youth, whatever, and you just do it, and if they like it. You know, music was made in the same way. Well, we made art. They say, what is it? Men's tailoring is a craft and ladies is an art. And we were kind of bisexual by that time, so we were making art, let's say. And it's held up and become collectible simply because of what it is.
As with any great period in history, some people will go to extraordinary lengths to preserve what they see as the most important landmark in fashion history. The most serious crusaders have even gone as far to compile their own museums dedicated to a single designer or shop, whilst others have succeeded in making it their living, meeting both the specific demands of serious collectors and the more individualistic of the general public.
When I realised I was becoming a collector as opposed to just somebody that really liked one type of clothing was when I looked in my wardrobe and I couldn't get any more in. And I looked at it and it was just all Bieber, and I thought, hold on, there's a bit of a theme going here. I would say when I had about 40 Bieber pieces, I really started to seek it out then. And I think today, well, I got to over 500 pieces. The whole point of things like whether it's Bieber, whether it's Quant, or whether it's any fashion from any period, is that somebody can tell you why they bought it and what they did with it and how they wore it, and then when they pass it to you, it's like being passed a piece of treasure. You know, it's like inheriting something from somebody.
I think people are more eclectic generally. They can have a bit of everything. I think you don't get 100,000.
There's not many people that come in that are top to toe 60s or top to toe 70s sort of every day. They generally, somebody wants something a bit interesting and original to mix in with their contemporary clothing.
Like usually when somebody comes in, if you can see they're into 60s stuff, you can generally think, oh well, they're going to be very 65, or they're 66, 67, 68. Because if somebody's head to toe, it's usually like Rita Tushingham or Catherine McGowan or Julie Driscoll, and then it's Janis Joplin, and then it goes on and on like that. Usually you can just think, oh, I've got your number, I know what you want.
It's shoes and boots, and it's the classic slim foot and what we call a matchbox heel, which is basically, it's a tiny little heel, which is that. And the reason that it's called a matchbox heel is because basically it looks like a tiny little matchbox. And this is the classic sort of mid-60s period, sort of 65, 66. After that, the heels started getting wider, and then by sort of 68, the Louis heel had come in and the heels became a lot thicker. But the thing I like about mid-60s shoes is they have this elongated design about them which matches the clothes, because the clothes were made very long and very cut very high up the armhole, because it gave your body a very long, lean look. And so, you know, they made shoes to match that look, very long and very lean. Of course, you've got to have the legs that go with it.